Good afternoon, everybody. This is a regular meeting of the Board of Directors of the East Bay Regional Park District. It is September 1st, and we're starting on time at 1 p.m. I'd like to ask the clerk to call the roll.
Yes, Madam President. Director Wieskamp?
Here.
Director Rosario?
Here.
Director Lane?
Here.
Director Waspi?
Here.
Director Eccles?
Here.
Director Coffey?
Here.
And Director Corbett.
I am here, and I would like to ask Director Rosario if he would please lead us in a Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, someday.
Thank you all very much. Very important words. Thank you, Director Rosario. All right. So today we're having a regular meeting in accordance, again, with Governor Newsom's executive order, allowing for board members to participate remotely. We're also providing live audio and video streaming, and we have provided the public the opportunity to submit written comments and also to call in for public comments on any item or staff report. And they can also call in and leave a voice message, and that will be presented to us to review. So I would like to ask the clerk to once again remind us and the public the 3 things people should do if they do want to provide public comments for us, how they do access that.
Yes, Madam President. Members of the public can actually send an email to myself, yburial@ebparks.org. They can also give us a call at 510-544-2016 and leave a message with their public comment, which will be transcribed and given to the board. And they can also just let us know that they are interested in giving a public comment before 3 o'clock, and we can allow them into the meeting to give their comment. So those are the 3 ways. And after they give their comment, they are more than welcome to get off the meeting and watch it on our YouTube channel.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk, and thank you for always ensuring that the public has an opportunity to participate in our public meetings. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, and also I will just remind the public that this information is always posted on our agendas and of course is available online and posted prior to the start of our meetings as well. So with that, before we move on, I will just ask the board members, do you have any questions this morning about the procedure of the meeting today? Everybody good? Okay. All right. I know you've all had an opportunity to take a look at the agenda. Is there a motion to approve our agenda?
I move we approve the agenda.
Moved by Director Wieskamp and seconded by Director Lane. Please call the roll on approval of the agenda.
Yes, Madam President. Director Eccles?
Yes.
Director Coffey?
Yes.
Director Waspi? Director Rosario?
Aye.
Director Lane?
Aye.
Director Wieskamp?
Aye.
And President Corbett.
Aye. Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. And do we have any public comments this morning
You know,
on the agenda items?
we do not have any public comments in advance. I do happen to see 2 people in the meeting that I am not aware of who they are. So if they could send us a chat, I'd really appreciate it if it's something to do with the meeting. If you hear me, Gigi and Kelly. So if you want to participate in the public comment, please send me a chat. So let's give them a second to do that. And
Yes, we'll give them a moment to see if they would like to comment during our public comment period, which is now.
Okay. Matthew has sent an email to Gigi, so, excuse me, a chat to her or him.
Okay. Have we received any response?
No, not yet. Matthew, have you gotten anything?
No, I never got a reply. The account GG, if you had any public comment, now is the window for public comment. If you had anything you'd like to share.
Oh, okay. Kelly Abreu is saying that his chat is disabled and he does want to speak.
Okay, can you please allow Kelly in to make public comments?
Okay, Kelly, I'm going to let you in. Let me find your name. Keeping in mind that we have 3 minutes. You have 3 minutes. Kelly, where did he go?
Well,
Oh, okay, he's on.
okay.
Hello, Kelly, welcome.
During this time of pandemic and social unrest, that there is public concern for, there's concern for public health, diversity, and environmental justice. However, our regional parks and outdoor access are under siege by wildfires. Wildfires have closed El Lago del Valle in Livermore and Mission Peak in Fremont. Ed Levin County Park is right next door in Milpitas, and it remains open. So let's hope that Mission Peak can reopen just like Ed Levin County Park in Milpitas, which is run by the Santa Clara Parks Department. It's open, so maybe we can do the same. Our parks are also besieged by legal threats. Mission Peak in Fremont was barricaded in spring 2020. At the behest of city staff, developers filed a CEQA lawsuit at Concord Hills a few weeks ago, seeking to block the park. Vargas Plateau was the first park in 80 years to be in the history of EBRPD to be closed as a result of legal action. That was in Fremont. The legal action was filed by a local developer in 2008. The Mosaic Project plans to open a campground in Coal Canyon. That too has facing some threat from legal people cloaked as environmentalists. The board should defend regional parks and outdoor facilities from the forces of exclusion and support access for underserved communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kelly, for those timely comments. And under the special report today, I'm sure we will be hearing more about our parks and how hard our employees, our firefighters, and all are working to ensure that our parks remain safe during this time of wildfires. So thank you for your comments. Did we find out who Gigi was? Yes, Madam Clerk.
No, Madam President, I have received an email from a member of the public regarding public comments not on the agenda.
Yes.
Would you like me to read it?
Yes, please.
Okay. It's not that long. It's from Zachary Spriggs, S-P-R-I-G-G-S, and it says, I am writing today in concern about a couple of things with Alameda County reopening pools. When are we going to start seeing these lakes reopen? We are going on 6 months of no boating access. When the rest of the state has been open, EB Mud has been open for quite some time as well. As stated by EBRPD and many other government health agencies, being outdoors is the safest we can be. Me on a boat alone with no contact is the safest thing I can do. Inspections can be contactless. Why can't we come up with a system that annual pass holders are allowed in that reduces contact even more? All you have to do is a valid pass and we are good to go in. Keep the swim beaches open, but let's find a way to open lakes to allow boating and fishing. Again, Alameda County is giving the go-ahead to open pools. Why aren't we opening these lakes to at least fish? We have been kept in the dark for far too long on this. There is zero transparency here. Why is that? I hope we can come to a resolution soon. Your parks are great, but not everyone just uses them to hike for mental health. There are thousands of fishermen who are anxiously waiting for you to reopen so we too can find a way to relax. And that's from Zachary Spriggs. And
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk.
you're welcome.
Any other, have we heard from anyone else for public comment?
Yes, now we're just really quickly, we have two emails regarding Mission Peak.
Okay, please read them
Um,
within the 3-minute time frame.
yeah, one is from, I'm sorry if I mispronounce your name. It's ASOK Chatterjee, board member. Oh, this is a board member, Vineyard Heights in Fremont. Actually, this is related to item C1, so we can wait or we can take that now.
It's specifically on C1?
It says agenda item C1, which,
Then that's the update from the general
Yeah.
manager. I think we can take it now, Madam Clerk. It's okay.
it says, I write to you as board member of Vineyard Heights Residential Community. You will be discussing the opening of the Mission Peak Park at today's meeting. We are all aware of the unprecedented fire hazard that threatened our community in the very recent past. We simply dodged the bullet by sheer luck. Our community borders the Mission Peak Park. We were under evacuation warning. We were under evacuation warning issued by the city of Fremont and county of Alameda for several days. Our homes were very much within the fire risk zone. We had our suitcases with important papers, valuables, and essential clothing so that we could evacuate following a 15-minute warning at any time, day and night. It was nerve-wracking. The fire hazard in the East Bay area is still an imminent threat. The firefighters are absolutely overstretched. So are the local police forces. The air quality in the area is often awful. You must not open the park and/or allow any kind of public activity until the fire hazard is totally mitigated. And that's from Mr. or Ms. Chatterjee. And then the other one I received, actually that's it. That's all that I have right now.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Our next item will be the consent calendar. Madam Clerk, do we have any questions from the board members on the consent calendar? or
Yes,
comments?
Madam President. We had Director Rosario and Director Lane on item J. And I'm not sure, Director Rosario, if you had your question answered, but item J is authorization to transfer 1.0 FTE Cultural Services Coordinator position from the Interpretive and Recreation Services Department to the Planning and GIS Department and amend the 2020 budget, Operations Division and Acquisition, Stewardship and Development Division. So Director Rosario had a question, and the question was, how does the transfer affect the operation of the archives? Was that question answered?
Yes, that question was answered. My understanding that nothing will change. So I'm good with that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Rosario.
And
And
as
Director Lane's question?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, once again, how important this position is, you know, whether, and they are just, this is just essentially moving it from one area to another. And I wanted to add that at this point, when we really are trying to focus on diversity, both in our workforce and in having, meeting the needs of our diverse community, that to be able to communicate our history within the East Bay, essentially, is really important. And I think in particular, to remember the thousands of years of Indian settlement and the fact that so much of our East Bay was agricultural, which meant we brought in populations from all over to work in our various agricultural endeavors. So having one person to coordinate all this, I think, is a challenge. And I would hope that we would think about giving that person additional support, if not this year, next year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Lane. And on that item, my quick comment would be that we have been doing some beautiful work in the planning department recently as we discussed the naming of parks. And I think this move will be supportive of work we will be doing in the future. And glad to hear that it won't impact the archives. And I think that your points are also very well taken, Director Lane. So thank you. It is a really, really important part of the work we do, without a doubt. Can't have a future without a history. So that's important. So thank you. So have all questions? Yes, Director Lane.
Yeah, then I did have one thing I wanted to comment on. And
Yes,
that
please.
was, G, expanding the Rosie the Riveter legislation.
Yes.
And that's on page 33. I just, for those of you who weren't in at the legislative committee, I wanted to point out that they dealt with a specific issue having to do with Rosie the Riveter, but this legislation would also enable the park district to make decisions like this on a regular basis without having to go back for specific legislation. And I think that that's a really good addition to the legislation. So I wanted to point that out to people.
It's always a good thing. A little local control never hurts. All right. All right. Thank you so very much. I know we still have item C to do. I have not forgotten that. But since we have our questions and comments answered, we can go ahead and take a motion on the consent calendar, please.
Hello.
Moved by Director Wieskamp and seconded by Director Waspy. Please call the roll on the consent calendar, Madam Clerk.
Yes, Madam President. Director Coffey? Yeah, I see you.
He's an aye.
Here, I decided I would shake you up and see who's paying attention today.
And working.
There
Are
we
you
go.
touching our mute buttons?
No, I'm not touching them. Director,
Included me.
Aye.
Director Lane,
Aye.
Director Waspy,
Aye.
Director Rosario,
Aye.
Director Wieskamp,
Aye.
and Director Corbett.
Aye.
Thank you.
Unanimous
All
on the
unanimous.
consent calendar. Thank you all very much. We will now go to item C. I have my alphabet a little mixed up today. And let's welcome our General Manager, Bob Doyle. I think you're still on mute. There you go.
Thank you very much. I hope all the board is staying safe in these really very scary times. And I hope everybody in the parks, helping to take care of the parks, is getting through this as best they can. Although this is the general manager's COVID update, I really do want to focus on what is now, I will call double trouble, between trying to keep our parks open during the worst pandemic any of us have seen, at the same time dealing with these incredible fires across the state. I will have our very busy, very tired fire chief give a status report, and then I will show some slides of what we're dealing with in the parks. But I did want to say that we really can't forget that we are trying to operate parks and fight fires and protect our parks while we're dealing with all of the COVID protocols. That includes wearing masks in hot weather. That includes trying to do work when it's hot out there with our masks on. And I want to just express my deep and sincere appreciation of the staff trying to keep everyone safe, trying to deal with the ever-changing requirements. In fact, we just had 2 new health orders on the counties and 1 from the governor, none of which specifically impact the district. They do loosen up some things, and we'll give more information on that to the board when we have a chance to analyze those 3 changes. The governor's changes are primarily a new color code system, which you've probably read about on the status of both hospital occupancy and outbreaks. We are still very cautiously optimistic that in our district of a workforce of almost 1,000 people, we have had an extremely low rate of exposure, none of which have been on the job or in the park work, but have come from exposures off-site. And we really appreciate every staff person who's following the protocols, If they have questions, they're asking their park supervisor. If the park supervisor doesn't have an answer, they can ask their unit manager. And we are really paying attention to that communication, as the board is very aware. We are public servants. We are an essential service, but this is just really, really trying times. So we're now dealing with smoke, and we will be dealing with smoke for probably several weeks to come. Many of the fires are still burning. So I would like to just say that some of our most iconic California landscape parks with heritage oak trees, with giant manzanitas, such as Morgan Territory, Round Valley, and Ohlone are badly, badly burned. And the fires in the south, in the Ohlone area and south, a huge fire, and we'll get an update from Eileen, is still burning. So we are keeping Del Valle closed because it's a bivouac center for CAL FIRE and our firefighters to get up into those areas. We are running dozers to start to correct some of the potential damage. We have massively large trees down over trails, some of which are still burning. And we cannot do the work we need to do and also be worried about people who may get lost, get in the wrong area, or need help. I really want to remind everyone that our firefighters, both permanent and on-call firefighters, many of our on-call firefighters are out there on these lines fighting the fires, which means they are not in the parks being able to do a lot of the normal work they do in the parks. The public needs to be understanding that we are moving our staff to these fires to protect the parks, lives, and property. So we ask everyone to be patient. We have a lot of equipment rolling through the parks now in the southern area and in Morgan Territory and Round Valley to still look for spot fires that are burning. And some of these fires are not being put out, they're going to be burned out because of just the size and magnitude of the vegetation and the steep terrain. So I'd like Eileen, our wonderful fire chief, to give us an update. If we can share the screen to her slides, which will then be attached to my slides, but have Eileen with a great welcome and a deep appreciation of keeping everyone safe and trying their best in a very major leadership role for our park district with CAL FIRE, because CAL FIRE was elsewhere fighting all of these lightning fires across the state. So Eileen.
Boss.
Welcome.
Hello, our board of directors. I'm happy to be here to give you a little bit of an update. With that, I'm going to need Mary's help, I believe, to put up some of the slides so that I can give you kind of a summary of what's really been going on. It's a kind of a small PowerPoint presentation, but I think that it really does help give everybody kind of the best idea of what's going on. So as of the August 15th, it started kind of in Southern California. We had a weather front move through. Over that period of time, from then to now, we've had 14,000 lightning strikes across California with 870 fires that have been ignited. Between 96 and 97% of CAL FIRE resources were committed within a 92-hour period of those lightning strikes happening. Currently, we have 16,000 firefighters on the line and 18 major fires. And the major fires that are left are really those 870 that were either put out immediately as a lightning strike. They were put out as they got a little bit bigger by local resources, or they've grown together in many cases and become one of these 18 major fires. So to this point, this morning, as of 7 a.m., we have 1.45 million acres across California that have burned. So next slide. So this is what we had as of the middle of the first week that it started. This area in here is made up of really the LNU to the north, the Napa Santa Rosa area, the CZU over just above Santa Cruz, which has grown quite bigger than that. And then you can see just as it's covering over San Jose, that was the Calaveras Canyon complex and the Del Porto Canyon, or just the Canyon complex, that grew together. So the Calaveras and the Canyon grew together, and those were the two that primarily affected Sunol, Ohlone, Mission Peak, Del Val. And then to the north, we had a smaller deer complex that happened. And then all those fires were ignited, they estimated, the exact same time, certainly the ones that affected East Bay Regional Park District. Along with that, 2 days after the lightning strikes, we unfortunately had a red flag situation where we had a fire weather watch come through. We had relative humidity that was in the teens. And in over one 24-hour period, it was 8% relative humidity. And we had winds out of the north. So those winds really ended up pushing this fire. And then an inversion formed. And we ended up having those days of really horrible smoke. Next slide, please. So this will give you an idea of how many acres that we had. Let's see. So for Round Valley, we ended up, the deer complex ended up burning 165 acres in Round Valley. And then in Morgan Territory, I believe that is 696 acres. So that's how our parks were directly affected. You can see how we've got the overlay of the red fire on top of the green, which is our property. Next slide. This has continued how many acres burned for us. We had 4.45 on Mission Peak. That was a lightning strike. Pleasanton Ridge was about 20.8 acres. And interestingly enough, that was a lightning strike that didn't appear for a couple of days. And then when favorable weather hit, it was given enough oxygen to move along. And so that came 2 days later. Sunol got approximately 500, and that's including Camp Ohlone, way down the Alameda Creek drainage, or up the Alameda Creek drainage. And then of course our Ohlone Wilderness fire that continues to burn, it is called Division Quebec, as part of the Calaveras fire, or the Calaveras complex, got almost 5,000 acres. And that number is expected to grow because while we have favorable wind conditions, they are continuing to use burning out techniques, especially in areas for Director Waspy and Director Rosario, if you will remember the Williams Gulch or Big Burn area. That area has got a lot of really thick vegetation back there, and there's really no way of fighting that fire except for to let it burn out. Next slide. So this was our first time really fighting big fire, very close to home and under COVID. Upper left-hand corner, you'll see that's the incident command post. Every morning at 7 o'clock, every day at noon, and then again at 5 o'clock, there's about 40 people, including myself, and we have Captain Haley there, that would be briefed on what the plan of attack was for that day. And of course, we were there to represent the Park District's interests. On the right, upper right-hand side, you'll see two of our resources, 5685 and 5665 out of Del Val, that are just being demobbed today. So they have been on those fires since the very beginning, working 24 hours on and 24 hours off. And they're exhausted, frankly, but they did a great job, and they've been representing the Park District well. Lower left-hand corner is something that we've never done before. We knew the fires were coming. So while it was safe to do so, and while park staff were out of Del Val, we brought in our on-call firefighters along with our fuels crew members to do some prep work. The concern was that if a fire did come through and bump both Del Val or Camp Arroyo, that we had put some preparation work in place so that the buildings were hardened and would thus survive fire should it come through. That was a lot of really great work that was done, especially since it could be done by our own people who have a sensitivity to the Park District, their buildings, and our resources. Lower right-hand side, you'll see park staff from Del Val actually working with our fuels reduction crew That picture was taken just before they moved over to Camp Arroyo and did some hardening of that site as well. And what I mean by hardening is I mean moving fuels away from the buildings, the yurts, the infirmary at Camp Arroyo, things like that, tying dirt roads into each other or dozer trails into each other so that they could be defendable and again, they could potentially survive a fire coming through. Next slide. So when this all started, of course, everybody in the fire world had the best intentions of trying to keep our people as safe as we possibly could under COVID. Unfortunately, because these fires hit at the same time and with such speed that so many people had to be mobilized, CAL FIRE went back to utilizing the great big semi trucks that you see on the left-hand side. It says Mobile Sleeper Company. What those really are is they are great big containers full of beds stacked top to bottom in a bunk bed fashion or submarine fashion. And when firefighters come off the line, they go into those and they sleep. Well, it's recirculated air and people were forced to wear masks, and that wasn't going to work for us. Our department is a combination department, and if we had our firefighters potentially get COVID under these kind of conditions, then we ran the risk of getting the rest of our folks sick when they went back to work. So I want to give a huge shout out to lifeguard services, especially the permanent staff who then pivoted again and created a dormitory for all intents and purposes at the Nike classroom. They used the protocols and the reentry protocols that we've used throughout the district to set up a station outside where people could decontaminate, take their temperature, answer the questionnaires, and then record that they had done all of that, and hung tarps down and put cots in so that the staff could stay separated while they were sleeping. And when they congregated, and like you can see in this picture, they were all wearing masks. So it was a huge effort by everybody. And I think that it's just a huge compliment to operations, to public safety, about how everybody worked together to really have the best outcome we possibly could. Roads and trails was also a phenomenal part of this too. In the middle of some evening, I can't remember which, but I had a conversation with AGM O'Connor. I said, we need a dozer. Can we get a dozer from Roads and Trails? He got one, and they were out there the next day working hand in hand with our fire and fuels crews to really do what we could to protect all of those buildings. So that's the end of my report. At this time, the SCU fire is 390,000 acres and 70% contained. We will start to see some columns of smoke still due to firing operations. And then as that fire moves through, it's going to hit pockets that need to be burned out. And so this last slide, I just wanted to really show the conditions that were happening in some of our parks. This specifically is the Del Val and the Ohlone. And that's why I made the recommendation to close some of our parks. The general manager, both counties had called me, county chiefs had called me and said, we don't have anybody to send you if something should happen. So if somebody has a slip, trip, fall, if you have a fire on your property, I doubt anybody's going to notice it because we won't be able to see because of the inversion layer of the smoke. And so that was the recommendation that I made. I appreciate everybody's support in that, because I think that we shifted for a bit of time there from COVID and healthy people, healthy parks. That's what we promote here, but it was really healthier for people not to recreate for a couple of days in our parks. And this picture shows why. That's all I have, boss.
Thank you, Eileen. Great. And
Thank you, Chief.
just really great. So I will continue this and then have the board ask if there's additional questions. There's your overview of California on fire. And it's just we're not isolated. We thought it was all here, and we find out it's everywhere in the state. So this is an unlike an internet and a worldwide pandemic. This is a situation that we've never seen in California before. And this isn't truly fire season. We're not in the fall. yet. So I think all of us are pretty shook up and doing our best. So next slide, please. So you can get the perspective. The fire that's listed there is Ohlone, but it is Round Valley, Morgan Territory. You can see there's a fire north of Round Valley too, smaller fire. Obviously for the Park District, because we graze our land, anyone that's involved in fire understands that that's where you want to make the line, that's where you want to fight, and that's where you want to have defensible spaces in the more open grassland, woodland areas, not where these fires tended to hit. They all tended to hit in some very remote, very rugged areas. As the chief said, we didn't even know there was a fire at Pleasanton Ridge until 2 days later because the smoke column wasn't visible. Next slide. So one of the issues that happened, you can see also that Los Vaqueros watershed really got burned. But that ridge is the main dividing ridge between the top of Walker Ridge and Morgan Territory down into Round Valley. And it is a very steep, rugged ridge. So the fire spread there very early in the morning. Next slide. And what we unfortunately have is a lot of situations where these canyons haven't been burnt off in decades. I know that Round Valley hasn't been burnt in my lifetime. And when I talked to the owner of Round Valley buying the property, he said he's protected it from fire for decades. What happens is they go up these canyon chimneys and you can see the white, that's ash from trees, but it also can get so hot it sterilizes the soil. This will be our #1 concern after the fires are really out, because we're going to see everything come down those canyons if we have a very big winter. Next slide.
Bob, I think we may have lost the slides.
Okay, I can see them. Can anyone else see them?
I got them.
I can,
Oh, there you go.
Okay, you got them?
I have them again. Thank you.
Okay. So again, fighting the fires with a fuel break and line in the grassland is the most safe and efficient way to do that. And unfortunately, with the lack of support we had to help fight fires, because there were so many, we basically built perimeters and backburned in some areas, did, as you see the dozer here, to create these fire lines, and then internal into that, it's going to burn out. But we have to come back in and we have to fix some of these rather hastily created fire stops for these fuel breaks. So we're going to have to be dealing with erosion and trail damage and things like that. And we will be working on that plan already. Again, thanks to the chief. Stewardship's already been out there on the line looking at what we need to do first. So great work and coordination at the Park District. Next slide. You can see how hot it goes up the canyons. You can also see the fire break being cut there. I do want to say that we have been burning portions of Round Valley with some criticism because it's black after we burn it and not as enjoyable. But in many places, the fires in Round Valley burnt up to those prior purposely lit fires that we did to control star thistle and things like that. So it acted as an additional buffer, and you can see that there in this slide. But you also see how hot that flame was going up the canyon. So everything along that ridge burned. Next slide. One of the losses that I was hoping we would be able to protect, but this is the backpack camp at Round Valley. This is the beautiful fence that Roger Everson built to create that, all hand done by CCCs and crews. But unfortunately, that eventually caught fire with that fire coming over the ridge. Next slide. And so we've lost most of that area. And so we'll have to decide how we honor that beautiful work and bring it back. Next slide. So that this really is how big this fire was, and it spread. As the chief knows, this early morning fire and into the afternoon really went fast. So everything on that slope, Morgan Territory on the top, Round Valley at the bottom, basically is burnt toast, including a lot of very large oaks, a lot of really wonderful large manzanitas, particularly in Morgan Territory. Next slide. But again, a lot of this was getting into the perimeter, getting the support we could, and then you can see everything else above going up to Morgan. So it went from Round Valley into Morgan Territory. Next slide. Out, then you see the fire lines and the grassland, and then you can see the fire on the slope in several places. This is the fire moving south into Los Vaqueros. Next slide. And this is what you end up with, is some very, very hot burned areas. One of the things that a lot of people don't realize is that much of the, and this is very important for reopening parks and public comments, is that these fires will burn slowly in the trunk of a tree, and the tree may fall over a week, a month, a year. I've recorded trees from a 1977 fire on Mount Diablo State Park that the trees that were burnt in that fire fell over 20 years later as the bottom rotted out from that burn. So this is something we have to be very concerned about, trees falling onto fire roads and trails. It is not safe to be there. And that's why we're keeping a big buffers around these areas. Next slide. Next slide. There we go. So this is what we have on top. I think that can't be any more descriptive than that slide. Nothing is there. And that is a big drainage going from the top down into Round Valley. So there's nothing to hold that soil. This was one part of it was a big manzanita grove, and then brushland, chaparral, and oak. So you can see how hot that fire is. In the 77 Mount Diablo fire, soil was sterilized by the fire, including any seeds. And there are still scars this far in the future from those sterilized soils. So it's going to be a major concern. Next slide. Ghost trees. This is an example where you have a deep hole in the ground next to the tree, and you have a silhouette of the tree that's completely burned and burned hot. So this is also a hazard. You've got deep holes next to the trails where the tree is gone, but there's holes that may go down 2 to 3 feet deep into the ground that somebody could break a leg in. Next slide. Right next to the trail. So again, hot. These were very hot fires. Next slide. So the southern fires that our great staff worked on were really unbelievably large and just kept going, many fronts from lightning storms. Basically, our Ohlone wilderness acted as the fire break. Otherwise, it would have gone into Del Val, would have gone north even further onto the, a Patterson property that was acquired by the Water District Zone 7 and on to the DWR property where we manage a state park. You can see that the southern end of it is still burning. So it's not safe, and this is just huge. Next slide. We were first given reports that the historic cowboy camp, the Row Ranch, was burnt. It got up to it, but it was saved. I don't know if we have any. There will be stories in the future, I'm sure, but we expected that this was gone. It is very much a piece of Alameda County history, the Row Ranch and Row Ranch Rodeo, where all the cattle drives ended up at the end of big cattle drives. Happy to see that made it.
Absolutely.
Next slide. So this is actually Camp Ohlone. This is above Sunol, way back in, where the fire also spread there. And just a comment, remember there was a separate fire at Mission Peak that was put out earlier it was able to be stopped along the Calaveras Road up into Mission Peak, but it did require full evacuation. This is up the canyon, and it is the old Ohlone camp. And we thought that was gone too, but we only lost a few buildings. The old building, the residence and barn is, I believe, still there. But these are old historic parts of the Park District. Next slide. Unfortunately, this is the world record of blue oaks. And on the left, you see that world record. On the right, you see the ghost tree. So we lost some really, this may have been the oldest tree we have in the district. And so we lost a lot of the heritage oaks because they have a lot of dead wood in the trunk and the base. And so I'm confident we would have lost a lot more oak trees had this not been a grazed area. I believe you will see my assertion that you will see a lot of the oak trees in the state park and Henry Coast State Park, which is not grazed, will be badly burned, including the conifers that are down there. Next slide. So you can see, I know that there's a major effort by conservationists, including the Park District and others in a coalition to look at the potential of acquiring the N3 ranch. You can see that the majority of the N3 ranch burned badly, still burning on the north left tip. But those lighter marks are the size of that 56,000 acre ranch. It is also the main drainage that goes into Del Valle Reservoir, and upstream of this, almost to Mount Hamilton, is all burned. So this is the northern end, but the total fire over 20 miles of that canyon is completely burned. And that's the main drainage into the state's reservoir in the state park. So we're extremely concerned that there's nothing to hold the soil, and a lot of debris is going to come down if we have a big winter. That the board will recall in the 2017 storms, the majority of flooding at Lake Del Valle came from this watershed, not from the state water project filling the reservoir. So this is a very big deal. I have already talked to the Secretary of State Resources about DWR needing to come and do surveys and see what we can do, but I anticipate a great deal of silt coming into the lake. Next slide. And just about the end here, at one point, our Eagle 7 was the only air support in our entire area. Everything else first had weather hold, where they couldn't fly because of the weather, including lightning and updrafts and downdrafts. And so when they finally were able to get the CAL FIRE air support going, they were headed to the big evacuations in the north and south where homes were threatened. While this area is extremely large and very hot, the evacuations were very remote and a smaller number. So I really want to acknowledge and am extremely proud of the work that our public safety did, not only in evacuations, but on water drops. But we also ended up being the principal eye in the sky to see the direction of these fires in these really remote areas. And we're paid for by CAL FIRE to be the eye in the sky to guide and keep people safe. So I'm just extremely proud of what the district has done to keep people safe and to protect our parks. And I'm not sure if I have any more slides. I think that's it. I really think it was worth the time to see what actually happened on the ground, to see the work that the Park District did in many cases by themselves. And I just ask the public to help us. We're going to be needing to raise some money to do some of these things. We're going to be really needing to keep some of these parks closed, because not because they're burned, because it's where we are dispatching our teams from, is the emergency operations center. And we just can't have the public in those areas while we're doing all this running around with vehicles and fire trucks. On Del Val, I wanted to mention something very specifically. We are working very hard to get Del Val reopened for fishing, but the CAL FIRE emergency completely drained our water tanks to the point where we could have damage to the system. So we have no firefighting capability for camping or for that park right now because the tanks are drained. They were drained to fill up fire trucks. So the public doesn't understand this, but we can't have people in a park under these conditions when we don't have water in that park and when we're doing so much work. But we are working hard to try to get fishing open again. But Del Val, Mission Peak, Ohlone, Sunol, all those parks need to remain closed until we're completely confident that they're safe and that we get the orders from CAL FIRE and our partners that it's safe to be there. And we've done the reconnaissance to make sure trees aren't going to fall over on people in these remote areas. We don't have any bandwidth to do rescues because we're doing other important work right now. And we just ask for the public support and their patience. Not over 90% of our parks are open and remain open. It was a very short period. We had to close all the parks during the weather. But if we end up with another big heat wave, we will close more parks. The resources aren't there in California to respond appropriately to these fires. So I really beg the public support and their patience. We're doing the best we can. And I'm so proud of our teams in the Park District and our staff. So thank you, board members. Thank you for this time.
Thank you very much, General Manager Doyle. And you said it, I think we should be so very proud and appreciative of our people. Chief Tylee and her crews, AGM O'Connor and all those in operations that had to be pulled together to protect our properties and make sure people were safe. The way the operations were conducted in safe ways during COVID-19 and all the care that goes into that. I think we are very, very appreciative. And if we were all in a room together, I think this would be the moment where we had a standing ovation for everybody. So thank you for that. We know that takes a lot of commitment and even time away from family where you're working 24 hours a day during these kinds of situations. And the work you do was also part of what helped keep the fire away from many of our friends down in the southern part of our county who were on evacuation alert. So thank you for protecting our parks, our people, and our neighbors as well. So thank you so much. And let me just open it up to, yes, General Manager.
I just really want to acknowledge that the role of our public safety, although it's to protect our parks, they are the ones directing traffic. They're the ones helping evacuation. They're the ones asking people to please stay out of the park when we're dealing with this heat and the fires. And everyone there from the chief all the way through the ranks, and as you heard, even the lifeguards, everybody. And the swimming is closed because we don't have lifeguards to be able to cover them. They're trying to go back to school. So we're really stretched, and this was an effort, and now we're all dealing with the bad air quality. And I just hope that things get better.
And we certainly extend our appreciation for the commitment to all of those. AGM, Public Safety, Chief Chair Burrow, and all of the people involved in his division. So everybody in the Park District, we have a very, very wonderful crew who stepped up during these very, very difficult times, step up even a little higher during this next issue that we're dealing with, the fires. So anyway, we're very, very appreciative. So I will open it up to any board members who have any questions or comments. Would anybody else like to ask a question or make a comment? I do not see any hands. Anybody? Everybody's good? Okay, thank you all very much, really sincerely from the bottom of our hearts. You are all awesome. Thank you so much. All right, well, that was item C. So we're going to go on now to the legal division report, number 2. How ironic, we are accepting the final insurance payment on the 2017 winter storm damage claim and executing a claim of release and mutual settlement agreement with Lexington Insurance Company. And according to my agenda, our General Counsel, Carol Victor, and our AGM of Finances, Deborah Ocker, are up on that item.
President Corbett, members of the board, Carol Victor, District Counsel. This matter is to authorize acceptance of the final insurance payment and execute a claim and release with Lexington Insurance Company. The insurance recovery for our winter storm claims was approximately $2.6 million, minus a $25,000 deductible. Jeff Rasmussen has a presentation prepared to walk the board through the projects and the winter storm damage and where we are in terms of repairs. And so with your permission, Director Corbett, I'd like to turn it over to Jeff Rasmussen.
Thank you very much. Welcome, Jeff. We look forward to the report.
Great, thanks everybody. Jeff Rasmussen, Assistant Finance Officer. I'm going to try to share my, my PowerPoint on the screen. Let's see how this works. All right, how does that look? Can everybody see my presentation?
Yes.
Great.
Great, thank you. So as was mentioned, we're here to accept the final insurance payment from the 2017 winter storms damage claim. So just to recap of the 2017 winter storms, we had 117 storm recovery projects district-wide, between $8 and $10 million of damage, 29 sites, turned into 59 recovery projects are completed. 58 projects are in FEMA, but three of the major projects that we're gonna talk about today were insurance projects. We had 3 major parks, Camp Arroyo, Del Val, and Robert Canyon Golf Course were damaged, plus a few smaller projects district-wide, which I will cover right now. So just a total funding picture. We're expecting to get about $10.4 million for FEMA funding, or $10.4 million total, $6.8 million from FEMA. And as Carol Victor mentioned, about $2.6 million from insurance. And the district has appropriated $1 million of general fund to assist in the recovery effort. Just a brief update on FEMA. Morgan Territory, Finley Road. This is a board and general manager priority. I am working with the general manager's office. This is in Morgan Territory, which is part of the state parks property. So I'm working with the GM's office to get approval of this from state fire marshal and state parks. Everyone's been very responsive, and I hope to start this project immediately after Labor Day if we can get our final approvals. And the cost of Finley Road project is approximately $618,000. And then the project on the right is currently underway at Black Diamond to repair 3 ponds out there. It's going well, and that project is valued at $470,000. So moving on to the insurance settlement, I do want to notify or update the board that there are 2 errors on the staff report in the board package. For the business interruption, the 6 was transposed for the 9, so it made an error in the business interruption from $590,000, and you can also see then it affected the total loss, which is $2,590,000 and change. So those changes will be made in the final resolution. And then finally at the bottom, the staff report asked to appropriate the $132,000, but that's not necessary. That's actually revenue to the project, not actually project funds. But so with those 2 changes, we ask for the board's approval of this claim. So update on projects. The yurt project, which is valued at $130,000 to be paid for with insurance, is scheduled also to begin next week after Labor Day. It took a long time to get the yurt from Pacific Yurts to have it manufactured, but that's all been permitted by the county and ready to move forward next week. And then the pathways at Camp Arroyo, valued at $182,000, were completed just last week and look really great. Moving on to Del Val, we received approximately $890,000 from insurance at Del Val. $308,000 of that was used for debris removal throughout the park, the initial response and cleanup of the park, cost $308,000. And then the kayak trailer out there on the East Beach was replaced. The value of that project was approximately $220,000, but that included not only the trailer, but demolition of the old facility and bringing new power and AT&T phone service out to this site. After this, though, we'll leave approximately $362,000 available at Del Val of insurance money, which actually is unrestricted funds for the district. And we'll be looking to use those funds to help out close the remainder of the 2017 storms disaster. There, as we mentioned before, FEMA matching requirements of 6.25%, and there still may be other costs that FEMA or insurance in other places won't cover. Moving on to Redwood Canyon Golf Course, we received about $840,000 for Redwood Canyon Golf Course, and about $640,000 of that money was used for initial response, cleanup, removing down trees, knocking off the silt and repositioning some of the bridges. So $640,000 for emergency response and cleanup, which leaves about $200,000 left for additional repairs of the golf course, which we will partner up or combine with FEMA money to complete the restoration of the golf course, and including replacing 17 bridges, restoring the creek channel, and doing a lot of work to the greens. All right. And then finally, here's a picture of just a number of small projects. Miller Knox on the left, a tree fell down and broke some fencing. At Camp Arroyo, the heavy winds and stuff broke the dumpster doors, which have been repaired and replaced. And a Shadow Cliffs, we had flooding at the boat launch, which flooded their battery facilities and things like that. So that's being, Shadow Cliffs, that work's being replaced as part of the boat concession replacement project at Shadow Cliffs, but we contributed some funds to that. So with that, we ask the board to authorize acceptance of the final insurance payment for the 2017 storms claims and to budget the funds as requested. And with that, I will stop sharing and ask the board if they have any questions.
Thank you very much, Jeff, and thank you for presenting that. And obviously that represents a whole lot of work and maintenance and repairs over the last several years. And you know, we always seem to be very busy in the park districts and we'll be busy some more. But thank you very much. Appreciate it. Very, very clear. Any questions or comments for Jeff on this item?
Sure.
All right. I think everybody's very approving of the information you shared with us. Don't see any hands up, except for our Chief Counsel, Carol Victor. Please.
Thank you,
Oh,
President.
yes. And I'm sorry, Director Lane did have her hand up. It was hiding in the grasslands behind her. Director Lane.
Yes, and my cat's on the lap too. So, so I was wondering about the repair up Finley Road. So that is the path that was that fell in as a result of the rain. So that's $618,000 to repair. Is that the correct project that I'm thinking of?
Yeah, that is the correct figure, $618,000 to repair Finley Road. It's a major fire road into the park. It was a double twin culvert, huge culverts that got blown out, and it's being replaced with an open arched culvert. So it's a rather large project.
Okay, thank you, because I've had several questions about that.
Yeah, but it's completely cut off access to that north end of the park.
Yeah.
And it's definitely
yeah. So when do you think that will be done?
As I said, working with the general manager's office to get state parks and state fire marshal approval, but we are working with them, and I really hope to start it right after Labor Day.
Thanks. Okay.
Any other questions for the Assistant Finance Officer? All right, Council Victor.
Thank you, Board President Corbett. I just wanted to take an opportunity to recognize Anna Fong's tremendous work on this insurance recovery. Anna retired just at the beginning of July, and this really is the culmination of all of her efforts. There's each of these claims, there's just a tremendous amount of manpower hours and documentation required, and she was diligent and persistent, and it's reflected in the amounts we recovered.
That is very, very wonderful, and we certainly appreciate her diligence and her work on behalf of the district and the taxpayers for that matter. So Anna, if you're not listening, please know we really very much appreciate all of your work on behalf of the district. Thank you. And then I see Director Coffey with his hand up, and then Director Wieskamp.
A question for Carol, since you popped up there, and I was wondering, we're covered by the pooled insurance program, CSAC, and they're identified essentially as the carrier here, yet our settlement is with Lexington, a private company. How did that work its way into this transaction?
So Lexington is the first pool of excess insurance above our self-insured retention. We often are usually interacting with Lexington on our property claims.
Got it. Thank you.
Director Wieskamp?
It seems to me, since she's retired, she might not watch us all the time. Why can't we send a letter of appreciation from the board? Because I know we all do.
I think that's an excellent idea.
We
Can we
appreciate
have
our formers, our retirees.
Yes, can we have that prepared? Thank you very much.
She'll
Excellent
be very,
suggestion.
very touched.
Well,
Thank you very much.
she did a lot of meticulous work, and I appreciate it. We all do.
She deserves our appreciation.
Right.
All right, any other hands up? All right. Okay, thank you so very much. So this item, excuse me just for a second, let me turn back my page. Would anybody like to make a motion to authorize this action?
So moved.
Moved by Director Wieskamp and seconded by Director Waspy. Please call the roll on this item.
Yes, Madam President. Director Lane,
Aye.
Director Rosario,
Aye.
Director Coffey,
Aye.
Director Eccles,
Aye.
Director Wieskamp,
Aye.
Director Waspy,
Aye.
and President Corbett.
Aye.
Yes.
Thank you all very much. Duly authorized and appreciated. Thank you. So our next item is item 3, and we do have a public comment. This is under a public safety division where we will have a report and request to authorize an amendment to a contract with Goats R Us for our sheep and goat grazing services. But shall we take the public comment first? Madam Clerk, can you please facilitate that?
Yes. The public comment is from Ashok Chatterjee, and it says, Dear EBRPD Board, you will be discussing the issue of goat and sheep grazing services for the fire hazard reduction at today's meeting. I am writing to you as a board member of Vineyard Heights Residential Community. Our community borders the Mission Peak Park and is very vulnerable to fire spreading from the park to the homes within our community. During my interaction with the fire hazard reduction professionals of East Bay Regional Park District over the past couple of months, I came to know that only cow grazing is employed in the park area adjacent to us because it is cheaper. We all know that cow grazing does not even come close to goat sheep grazing in terms of effectiveness of fire weed abatement. However, it is employed elsewhere by EBRPD. And in all caps, it says you must employ goat sheep grazing adjacent to Vineyard Heights residential neighborhood to keep us safe from fire hazards emanating from the Mission Peak Park. And that's it.
Thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
Comment, and appreciate the public comments. So with that, we will have a presentation by our Chief Eileen Tiley and also our Fire Captain Kent Simpson. So please introduce yourselves, and we look forward to what you have to say.
And I do have my Fire Captain Kent Simpson on, who runs the actual day-to-day program, so that he can back me up if there's any questions. But basically, the goat grazing has been going on for a long time in the park district. It's one of the tools in the toolboxes that we use for fire hazard mitigation. And for this purpose, in this particular amendment, I wanted to just give you a little bit of background on why we are here. So this year, COVID didn't just affect, it's affected pretty much everything, but it really impacted our GOAT program, to be quite honest. Our contractors utilize an international workforce that sustains our targeted grazing program. And many of the countries that had total lockdowns led to the delay in bringing in herders and our contractors. So we knew this was important, and we knew the importance of our grazing as part of our overall fuels management. And so we realized that we needed to act fairly decisively. So once the determination that one of our vendors wasn't able to meet the commitment this year, we moved the work to other vendors. Even insurance companies that we were working with were impacted by layoffs and shutdowns. We did have one new vendor in 2020, and we determined that the challenges of taking on a large new contract was enough risk for that vendor without adding extra last minute work. So in a collaborative effort between legal, finance, and the fire department, there was many meetings during the initial transition to Microsoft Teams and the rapidly changing work environment that COVID created. But we all worked together to come up with a plan. And thankfully, the general manager approved 2 contract amendments for us under the declared emergency, with an understanding of the urgency of fuels reduction work and the minimal increases these amendments represented when compared to the combined total of the goat grazing contracts approved by the board. So the kind of end all here is that due to these actions, we were able to complete all 851 acres of grazing, luckily, before the lightning event this August. And that ends my kind of who, what, when, where, why report.
Thank you so much, Chief Tiley. And would Captain Simpson like to say something? There he is.
Hey, everybody. No, I just want to say thank you again. You know, it's with all of the challenges that we have faced this year, you know, we've really capitalized them on as many of them and try to make them in opportunities. And working through all this, we were still able to get the grazing completed before the lightning came in, and then have that 851 acres prepared for before the peak of the fire season sets in. As you know, fire season goes year round now, and every single piece is important, and that's why we haven't stopped working even through COVID. So thank you.
I will say too that Captain Simpson, this is his first time administering this contract, so, or all of these contracts. So he did a phenomenal job, really stepped up, really saved me in a lot of ways, saved the program, and I just can't say enough. But also really this is yet another collaborative effort between district departments, with the legal and the finance department, working with us to try to sort this out and figure out how we all get all of this done.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Captain Simpson. We absolutely appreciate your work. It's very clear that this team working with Chief Tiley is not only efficient, quick, and nimble. You're paying attention to world affairs to be able to put these contracts together and put them forward, and making sure this all-important grazing occurred before the lightning strikes. What a difference I'm sure that made. So thank you so much. You guys rock. What can I say? All right, thank you. General Manager. Uh-oh, we can't hear you.
Yeah. While the chief is still on the line, I think it would be important, I think the board knows, but the cattle grazing does a very different thing than the goat grazing. And maybe Chief Tiley, since she was in the stewardship department, can speak to that a little bit, because the goats eat everything and that's not what we want. And so we use goats, and they're very expensive, as you can see. but maybe Island could talk about the fire efficacy with the different grazing we use.
Okay, so I think the best way to explain it is start with the simplest thing first, which is that we use goats to kind of pulse graze areas. We use them seasonally for certain growth spurts we know we're going to have in our light flashy fuels. Cows, so goats are part-time, cows are full-time. Cows are working year round in different areas to keep up the grass that happens year round. Goats come in and sometimes their season ends. And if we have late rains like we did this year, you know, just using the goats isn't enough. We need the cattle. Goats are not selective at all. They will eat anything and everything, your house or a fence if they're attached and it's wood. Goats are a little bit more selective, and sheep are incredibly selective. So, you know, stewardship uses goats and sheep to graze some of our areas as a combination, because we can kind of control by what their palate is, what they eat and what they don't. So if we have an area where we've got some plants that we know we want to continue to populate and for the populations to grow, like in Vasco Caves or around that area, then we'll use the highly selective sheep. But the goats are a really good tool to come in. They're kind of like locusts. They descend, they eat our heavy fuels. They get a belly full, we get reduced fuel hazards, and they move on. In a nutshell, boss.
Great.
Great job. Thank you.
Great explanation.
Thank you very much. All right. Director Rosario has a question or comment.
Not a question, just a comment. I just wanted to commend Captain Simpson. He's definitely, I had the pleasure of meeting him along with some neighbors at their Marlborough Terrace, which, as you know, was the heart of the 1991 fire. And he is absolutely the right person in the right place at the right time. He is enthusiastic about his job. He knows a lot about his job, and he is very, very good with the public. And I admire his skill, and I'm glad he's on our side. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Ditto. Any other comments or questions? Anyone? All righty. Thank you very much, and for all of your continued hard work in keeping us all safe. We have a resolution before us to authorize an amended contract with Goats R Us to provide goat and sheep grazing services, and a ratification of 2 amendments to contracts for goat and sheep grazing services for fire hazard reduction with Goats R Us and Star Creek Land Stewards, Inc. Who would like to make that motion on the resolution? Director Waspy, seconded by Director Rosario. Please call the roll.
Yes, Madam President. Director Coffey?
Aye.
Director Lane?
Aye.
Director Eccles?
Aye.
Director Wieskamp?
Aye.
Director Waspy? Director Rosario?
Aye.
And President Corbett.
Aye, unanimous.
Good job.
Thank you all very much. All right. So our next item is board and staff reports, actions taken by other jurisdictions affecting the Park District. General Manager Doyle, do you have anything for us on this one?
No, if there's any other questions, I'm sure staff can answer those. I don't know if board members have any questions.
Okay. Anybody have any? Yes, Director Rosario.
Yes, regarding the Altamont Open Space Advisory Committee, it says they approved an initial 5 million. Are they still open to doing more?
Director Rosario, I don't know. They are both also very interested in preserving Tesla as well as M3. Those are pretty big bites at the apple.
Yeah. Okay, great.
All right. Any other board questions or comments on these items? All right. Okay, we're done with that one. So our next item under General Manager's comments is a report from the Human Resources Department. Our presenter will be Kip Walsh, our Chief of Human Resources. And she will be providing an overview of the Park District's COVID-19 response, annual staffing changes, and a highlight of accomplishments from the training program. Welcome, Chief Walsh. And Mr. General Manager, did you want to make a comment?
Just want to comment on the challenges in human resources, in addition to dealing with all of the COVID communications and issues and concern and air quality, and I can name a longer list. There is really a deep responsibility there and probably more pressure and work than ever before. Also, the HR department is down staff. Several key positions have left. And so I just want to acknowledge the importance, the support we give HR, the need. There are so many other things related to COVID and the daily business we usually do, hiring people, doing all the paperwork, doing all the position controls, the training. That is all, I would say, really expanded with trying to deal with all of these issues we're being faced with. It's not just in the field, it's in HR department to help people, plus a lot of recent retirements. So Kip, thank you very much, and go ye forward.
Thank you, Mr. Jim. I just would like to add to that. I would just like to say, you know, my work that I do on behalf of the board and attending EOC meetings, and obviously the conversations I have with members of our staff and, you know, work with 2428 and everybody in the organization, I have an opportunity to get a window into the type of work that Chief Walsh does. And I would just like to say without hesitation, she does outstanding work, and we're very fortunate to have her. And she's working during very difficult times. But I think that, you know, we couldn't do better with a chief like Kip Walsh. So thank you, Kip. Looking forward to see what you have to say.
Wow. Well, thank you all very much, General Manager and President Corbett. Very happy to be here with you today to make this very brief presentation. I want to be respectful of your time. And Alice Kinner, our training manager, will also be presenting with me. And Sharon, if you could please bring up the presentation so we can walk through our slides, that would be helpful. So good afternoon, all of you. I'm Kip Walsh, your Chief Human Resources Officer, and I'm here to make a brief presentation regarding the Human Resources Department. We have 3 topics, each of which I'll cover very briefly, but there will be a few minutes at the end for questions, and we can always follow up if there's a need. I'll give you a yes, Yolanda.
Sharon has stepped away. We were not aware that we were going to be showing this PowerPoint, so just give her a few seconds.
Or I can pull it up myself.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, I'll do that. Great. Okay. Give me just a second. Oops.
Zoom experts everywhere.
Yes.
We've all had to adapt.
Yes.
All right. Hang on just a second. All right. There we go. All right. Your human resources team. All right, so I'm going to talk briefly about our workforce, employees, new hires, transitions. We're going to talk briefly about COVID-19 and HR's role in the response. And then finally, we'll close out with training program, our flexible response under COVID, and some exciting new developments in that department. So first up, I just want to emphasize that one of the things we're experiencing in the work world in general is experiencing quite a bit is a much greater volume of transitions in the workplace. So more retirements, more attrition, people leaving with less time, more transfers, et cetera, et cetera. And so one data point on that field is how many people we're hiring. So in this last year, we hired 101 new employees. And as a point of reference, that's up from 55 last year. And this little dial just shows you sort of where those positions were, 78% of them in AFSCME and others in fewer of them in other areas, police association management and confidentials. So we continue to experience significant retirements. In the last 15 months, we've had 33 retirements. The average tenure of those 33 people was 22 years, which means we had 733 years of experience walk out the doors in this last year or so. That's a huge impact to the organization. And again, I'll just mention that that has an impact on HR, because as that institutional memory is lost, it means there's a lot more training required, a lot more helping managers understand their role and responsibilities, a lot more interaction and direct support to folks as they transition into new positions or new folks transition into the organization. So we are managing this as best we can by, conducting our recruitments and performing all our other regular activities, but there is a steep increase in the number of transactions, personnel transactions that HR is responsible for. I'll move on to our COVID response, and just very generally, I think you're all very much aware of the general manager's comments and his communications every week, and I think those have been critical for all employees to receive and to get important information week over week. In human resources, we've provided COVID-19 advisories, particularly frequently at the beginning of the crisis. Our benefits manager, Monica Alvarez-Celas, worked very hard to put new policies and procedures in place in relation to COVID-19 related leave, the new federal law that allows for that, as well as safety protocols and managing exposures or potential exposures in the workplace. All of that work falls to our benefits unit. We have very limited administrative support for that function. So Monica's been shouldering a lot of that herself. In addition to COVID-19 advisories, we've also offered text alerts through the Nixle system. There's an elaborate SharePoint site that we've set up in collaboration with several other departments, and we've provided tremendous guidance and direction to managers and supervisors, putting together some special trainings related to new laws and new contexts that came into effect during the COVID crisis time. Also critical to navigating the COVID crisis has been our engagement with labor. The general manager wisely recommended that we form a labor task force, which meets now meeting every other week, but for much of the crisis since its onset, we met weekly, and where we have participation from AFSCME, the Police Association, Board of Directors, and managers at the Park District. And those meetings have been very productive and central to our communication with labor and collaboration with them. I've been checking in regularly with each of the labor groups more informally. I'm still meeting with AFSCME twice a week and meeting with the Police Association as needed. And both groups have also been given the opportunity to meet with the Deputy General Manager regularly. So there's a lot of communication outlets between the Park District organization and our organized labor. We've worked hard to make sure that that is a strong communication. Also, as part of the Park District's overall response, our training manager, Alice Kinner, who has a background in public health, was redeployed to serve as a liaison to the Emergency Operations Center. She will now share a little more with you about that work and about some other key accomplishments this year. Thank you, and I'll turn it over to Alice.
Thanks, Kip. So good afternoon, President Corbett, Board of Directors. I'm Alice Kinner, your training manager at the district. I'm going to build a little bit upon what the training program itself did in COVID and then talk about what else we're doing as well. So as Kip mentioned, in March, I was deployed to the EOC in the management section. Captain Love and myself continue to coordinate information between the 3 health jurisdictions in which we operate, as well as the 2 operational areas, serving as your EOC liaisons. Additionally, I took the lead on bringing the Association of Bay Area Health Officers, that's ABAHO, to the table with park directors from across the Bay Area. And that was really in order to mirror the regional coordination that was happening in health departments and to help start to coordinate messaging, planning, and build thought partnership and consensus across health departments and parks throughout the Bay Area. My team was also disseminated and tracked FEMA disaster service worker training, helped in the development of the COVID-19 SharePoint site. And it was through our partnership with Abajo that I worked with UCSF faculty to provide trainings. UCSF actually offered 3 park-specific trainings on disease biology, COVID transmission, and COVID and equity. And it was the first of its kind, the first partnership that UCSF did with any industry. And in fact, UCSF faculty asked us how they might be able to scale it and do the same thing with other industries. So really exciting to be on the cutting edge of that. My team also developed the courseware for an online, the building entry protocol training. So next slide. Thank you. But it hasn't all just been COVID these past 6 months for us in training. During COVID, we also launched a learning management system. And this system means that we're able to assign, track, and register. Folks can register for trainings in real time because it talks to one solution. So the system already knows who your manager is, who your supervisor is. All those workflows are automatically built in. It also has 1,400 new courses available to staff so that they can learn new software or new skills at their own pace and remotely. And then lastly, we uploaded 20,000 pieces of historical data to ensure that every employee had a complete training record when they got into this new system. And then finally, we never lost our focus on equity and co-creating a culture of belonging at the district. So we executed an implicit bias training pilot in partnership with labor and management, as well as your board. And based on the feedback from the pilot, we added more in-depth practice to that training, and we actually added an hour to that training. And that course is currently open and live in Summit, so staff can pick a session that works well for best for their work unit and sign up for it. And it will be, they can sign up for any session that's between now and the end of the year. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Kip.
Well, thank you. We'll leave time for your questions. I realized I was being so quick to get through all my material. A couple of folks I want to just give a shout out to who were instrumental in working with HR on the COVID response. Our colleagues in operations, Jim O'Connor and Steve Castile have been really important partners. In the general manager's office, Catherine Dudney has been a really critical support to a lot of the materials we've developed. And then in our colleagues in public safety, Chief Tony Chiburo and Captains Al Love and Lance Breed have been tremendously supportive. So I just want to make sure I acknowledge my colleagues. We can't do any of this alone, and would hate to not mention them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kip, and thank you so much for mentioning that, and appreciate all their great work. It's been quite the year so far. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Any questions for Chief Walsh or Alice? Director Rosario. I also see Captain Love has joined us as well. Yes, Director Rosario.
Hi, Kip. Thank you so much. Your workload, it really is, it's a lot. And I too want to express my appreciation for your work and your diligence in all these programs. One question is, how many positions are you short in your department?
How many vacancies do we currently have, you mean?
In your department, yeah.
Yeah, so right now I think we have 3 vacancies. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot. And then also my last question regarding the implicit bias training.
Yeah.
Is there like a due date for people to complete that training?
Alice?
Yes, there is. So we're giving folks 2 weeks to sign up for a session. And if they haven't signed up for a session, we will sign them up for a session automatically. And that will be through the end of the year. So we're hoping that we can get everyone trained by the end of the year.
Great.
Yeah, and getting new folks in too as they join the district for those folks that are hired, putting them in sessions as well.
It's having participated in the pilot program, I thought it was really, really valuable. Yeah, I'd just like to see it continue. Thank you.
Thank you. Great.
Any other questions or comments, board members? I do have a couple of questions if there's no one else. I did want to ask, well, I guess this is a comment. Being short 3 folks in the very important department of HR, especially during this time, I think is critical. And I, as a board member, will support whatever we can to make sure that we have the staff support to help do these very important jobs. And, you know, I hope we can move quickly to get the support that's needed in that area. And with the size of workforce that we have, maybe we should take another look at this department and make sure that it is configured appropriately for the amount of work that needs to be done. I think that that is a serious concern at this time. And, you know, we know that COVID's not going away anytime soon. And we also know that we will continue to have the kind of challenges we're having this year with natural disasters into the future as well. It's not like it's just maybe going to happen. So whatever we can do to find the support for this important department at this time, I think we should definitely do. And I also appreciate all of the new programs and innovation which is coming out of this department. And of course, especially supportive of the implicit bias training that's been going forward in Alice's work. I think that's just amazing and wonderful. And I did have just a quick question about that program. With the rest of the implicit bias training, is it also conducted with groups during this next phase, similar to the initial group?
See what it says.
Yes, yes, exactly. So it will be conducted on Zoom as well and in groups.
And we have the opportunity to have cross-departmental participation, which I think was a very strong part of that.
Yes,
Awesome.
exactly.
I'm glad to hear that. And then is it mandatory for all departments, divisions, from management through all employees?
Yep, everyone.
Absolutely. And I heard the answer to the question. There's no time frame, but are we looking to make sure that this is an annual sort of training, or how do we make sure we continue to enforce these really important principles?
I'll take that.
Yeah,
one.
so, oh, you want to take that?
Yeah, I will. Just quickly, I'll say a couple of things. One is, I think this is a really important beginning of some of our work around being a more inclusive organization and employer. I think what the tools will be and how we'll continue to grow that capacity may change. I think basic implicit bias training will always be a sort of fundamental piece in our toolbox, but I think there's a lot more that we can and should do, and that will be part of the work going forward. And Alice, if you have more you want to add, that'd be great.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I'm also working closely with the trainers themselves to identify, by looking at the evaluations, what an appropriate next step for training can be. Training.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other additional questions or comments from anyone? Well, once again, we very much appreciate your work, Alice, especially in the EOC, and absolutely appreciate, I mean, appreciate's not even a strong enough word for the work that Chief Walsh is doing during these difficult times. Thank you, Kip, for keeping it all together for us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
Okay, any other comments, questions? All righty, thank you. We'll move on to our next item, which is announcements from closed session.
President Corbett, there are no announcements from closed session.
Okay, thank you very much. And then we move on to board committee reports. We had a finance committee on June 24th, an operations committee on June 18th, and an operations committee May 21st. Does anybody have any further comments about what happened at these meetings? Yes, Director Coffey.
I've asked Deborah to comment briefly on the second quarter general fund financial report that you and I heard at the Finance Committee, Ellen, I thought it was a rather reassuring report, especially with what is going on these days among public agencies. So for that reason, hopefully Deborah can just take a few minutes.
Yes, AGM Ocker.
Thank you, Director Coffey. Deborah Ocker, CFO for the Park District. And yes, on the agenda, we're looking at the minutes, but in your board packet on page 53 was the second quarter financial report. And so in the second quarter, it was reviewed by the Finance Committee on August 5th. And as of June 30, the Park District's general fund revenues and expenditures were in line with the budget, except for the category of charges for services. This is the revenue category that has our parking, camping, picnic area fees, swimming, reservations, and concessions. And as you all know, those have been closed. So we have a shortfall as of June 30th of about $3 million. We do expect that that will more than double through the end of the year. And so to offset this significant variance, the Park District is, we've applied for a OES grant for COVID and received approval. So we will get reimbursed for some of the public safety costs and other supplies and things for that. Also, as Chief Kip Walsh was just talking about, we have a lot of recruitments in the hopper. And so there has been, with COVID, there's been a delay of getting staff online. So there's some salary savings in our delayed recruitments. In addition, we didn't hire many of our seasonal or temporary staff. We only brought on a few for a very short period of time. So there's additional savings in that category. And then there are some program costs that we did not need to spend in the interpretive and recreation department. So with all of that, we do feel that we will get very close to break even. We may have to use some of our reserves once all the final numbers come out. And the property tax numbers are looking like we will be on target. We had originally, remember, we had some delinquency funds withheld by the County of Alameda. And since we have been kind of trued up that 5% delinquency, there still could be additional delinquencies, certainly throughout the end of the year, but it looks, as of now, it looks like we will hit our budget target for the year in property tax, which is our most significant revenue source. With that, that's a very high level review, and for the next Finance Committee will give a detailed report on where we are and what our estimates will be through December. Thank you.
Thank you very much, AGM Ocker. Thank you for keeping us informed on all this important information so we can plan for the future. And thank you for keeping those books balanced. Thank you. All right. Anything else under committee reports, members?
Thank you.
All right. This is the time of the agenda where we hear from board members, board comments, and you have an opportunity to talk about any committee meetings or other places you have attended on behalf of the East Bay Regional Park District. I see the clerk has a question or comment. Madam Clerk?
Yes, Madam President, thank you. Just wanted to comment that we did have a member of the public, Mr. Gary Parikh, P-A-R-I-K-H, who was commenting regarding the same thing that Mr. Chatterjee had commented on about the vineyards, excuse me, from
grazing
board member of the vineyard company. So I just wanted you to, I wanted to publicly acknowledge that we did receive your email, and it was the same information that was already commented on, but I will make sure that you guys receive a copy of that.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk.
You're welcome.
All right, we appreciate those public comments. All right, so I'm going to just go across the screen and call on my friend in the box next to me. Director Rosario, would you like to start?
Sure. Seems like forever since we've had a board meeting. So this is sorry, it's a long list. So on 8/5, I attended the COVID task force meeting, which continues to contribute greatly to our communications up and down the park district. On 8/5 also, I attended the finance committee meeting. And then on 8/6, I attended the executive committee meeting. And then also on 8/6, I attended the Contra Costa Mayor's Conference. And on 8/7, I was attended the Alameda County Unionist of the Year dinner, which was its first Zoom event, which was pretty interesting. I think I like it better than the dinner. And then on 8/11, I met with the ASME 2428 Executive Board. And then 8/12, I again attended the COVID task force meeting. And then on 8/14, I had my one-on-one with General Manager Bob Doyle. We had an excellent conversation. And then 8/14 also attended the attended a meeting regarding Lake Temescal with the City of Oakland and Deputy General Manager Ana Alvarez. I think we're continuing to make good progress there. We're keeping each other apprised of our progress, and it sounds like City of Oakland's making really good progress as far as getting their engineering study completed. And then on 8/18, I attended the East Bay Mud Liaison Committee, and we got to hear the presentation that was requested by East Bay Mud on our public safety department, which I thought was a very good presentation. And that's, I'm sure that'll be, and we'll see that presentation as part of our survey of our own request to look at our police department as well. And then on 8/20, and then I met with my constituents at the Marlboro Test with Captain Simpson. We addressed their concerns regarding the piles of brush that were left, and Captain Simpson and the crew there has alleviated all that brush. And then again on 8/26, I met with the COVID task force again. And then on 8/28, Jim O'Connor and I met with the Chabot Space and Science Center just to get an update. They're struggling. They've laid off 2/3 of their employees, and everybody that's left has taken a major cut in salary. So they're looking hopefully for some better times. And then today's meeting. And I just wanted to express my admiration and respect for all of our employees involved in the firefighting efforts, public safety, firefighters, lifeguards, and then also the park staff that's left behind shorthanded to take care of the parks as needed. I think it's we should really. I really am proud of our entire organization and everybody in it. Everyone's doing their part, and we should all be proud. So, thank you.
Hear, hear. Thank you, Director Rosario. Director Waspy, would you like to go next?
Yes, thank you. I, like Director Rosario, on October 6th, 12th, and 26th, attended the COVID task force meeting, and as Director Rosario said, it's very productive. We get lots of issues out, try to resolve most of them, and if we don't resolve them, we continue to study it and do better the next time. Also on August 6th, I met with the union leadership via Zoom. On October 15th, I had a tour of the Danville Museum. I saw the display of the women's suffragette display and the 100th anniversary, the women's right to vote. It was very, very wonderful presentation, wonderful display. On August 18th, I attended the East Bay Mud Liaison Committee meeting. And the 21st, the Regional Parks Legislative Committee meeting. On the 31st, I worked with the ad hoc committee to screen recruiter applicants, and we've got a group of 4 applicants, which we'll interview and hopefully come up with a recruiter pretty soon for the general manager's position. I also would like to thank the firefighters and staff for stepping up crises after crises throughout this year. This will go down in history as I think one of the most incredible years and most stressful years in the Park District's history, but I think everyone's stepping up and doing an excellent job, and I appreciate their efforts. I didn't ask Captain Simpson, but I'm wondering if we'll have a critique of the goat program this year. It's a little different this year, as opposed to the 300 goats that I used to see in my backyard all the time. There were 1,000 goats this time, and they were commingled with sheep. It was a really, really interesting process. Everything was occurring. As with any society of 1,000 inhabitants, there were goats dying, which people were reporting to park staff. Hey, that goat.
Excuse me, Director Waspy, you're really going to have to get closer.
Oh, I apologize. Okay, the goats were the goats and sheep were a whole society, living, dying, being birthed. I recall, and in compliments to the new people, we've had, I think the grazer and the herders in my neighborhood were different this year. They were friendly, cordial, nice. I do what I generally do when I see the goats every year. Based on my heritage, I jump over the electric fence and play around with goats and have a lot of fun. I attempted to do that this year, and I was greeted by not those cute little border collies, but some incredibly large Great Pyrenees beasts that literally came running at me, barking like crazy, and literally, as I got back on my side of the fence, jumping at me and getting, I thought I was going to die, and I thought it would be a big problem. Turned out later that these dogs were great. They were very protective of their herds, and they're bred for that, to drive off wolves. But once you got to be friendly with them, they were fun and great to play with. In fact, and on their last day, we got involved, my family and some park rangers got involved with a mother goat who gave birth to a stillborn baby. Pardon me, it was a mother sheep that gave birth to a stillborn sheep, adopted or was forced to adopt a goat that's mom died in childbirth. So they took this 1 hour old goat and gave it to the sheep and said, "Here's your new mom." And, it was quite a scene, and really great. I wish we could interpret those guys and how they act and how they live. It was really a great thing. Anyway, and finally, I would like to congratulate a friend and colleague, Jim Wheeler, who I think we all know, or hopefully you don't know Jim. He's a great man. He's been in the park and recreation field for years and years, who has been appointed as the general manager of the Hayward Area Recreation and Park District. So I welcome Jim and look forward to working with him. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Director Waspy. Director Wieskamp.
How can I top that story? What a good time you've been having, Director Waspy. Goats and sheep and very large Pyrenees. I had attended the executive committee. Had a one-on-one, always interesting, with our general manager. Sorry we couldn't get together, but one gets used to phone calls and Zoom, more or less. I was part of the ad hoc committee that was selecting the 4 firms we're going to interview for choosing a new general manager. And I'd like to suggest, I don't know whether it's a contest exactly, but a couple of people have called and told me about photos taken during the lightning storms and fires. And I think it might be interesting, in park pictures. And so it might be interesting to see what we get from the public. One of them was supposed to be 2 massive lightning strikes at Mission Peak. So just a little photo opportunity. I've had phone calls from a couple of people about both the Infree Ranch and Tesla. Still very interested in those properties. And I know, just so we don't lose track of them in this process. And I don't know if anybody, I assume, is looking. I was told that the Infree Ranch, that whole beautiful valley, burned. And obviously, General Manager just said that that seemed to be the case and would be a problem. So I think it would be good for us to get an update on that, because that has a lot of impact on that wonderful Del Val Park. And it's not going to have Shelley there. She's going to retire this month. I did get a chance. I tried to call her, couldn't reach her, and I talked to Rick, and he says they're busy working, trying to get Del Val in shape. They were starting to work again on the water plant, which is very important. As we all know, the water's all used up, and we can't really let people back in there until we are ready to service them like a small city. I would like to thank very, very much Chief Tiley, who not only knows fire, but she knows goats, she knows sheep. And she keeps an excellent sense of humor and has a great staff to work with. So I thank everybody involved. I think we're really lucky to have all departments terrific, but in this state where there were massive fires going on, our people kept the fires in control. And boy, was that a task. So go get them, firefighters. Even if that's not your official title.
Thank you very much, Director Wieskamp. And we're glad to see you here also, all raring to go and recovered with your beautiful eyes. Thank you. All right. So Director Eccles, you're the next one, next to Director Wieskamp, at least on my screen.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. Yeah, so starting earlier last month, I attended the Contra Costa County Mayor's Conference, August 6th, and then August 7th, along with Director Rosario, attended the Alameda Labor Council Unionist of the Year virtual event. Very, very well done. It's a tough thing to do over Zoom, but they did a great job. So August 12th, I met with the AFSCME 2428 leadership. And August 14th, had the opportunity to drop by Dave Zuckerman's virtual send-off. That was very entertaining. And as we heard from Kip, where so many people are retiring, and just a wealth of expertise walking out the door. And certainly Dave is one of them. And sorry to see Dave and all these other folks heading off into the hills, but we wish them all well. August 21st, attended the Legislative Committee. August 28th, did my one-on-one meeting with the General Manager, and really did want to thank all of the staff for their help with various questions that I've had, and always being so responsive. And particularly shout out to Christina Kelchner and Brian Holt and Chief Chaburo and Chief Tiley and Jim O'Connor. So all these folks, and I continue to be in conversations with Richmond city officials and other stakeholders around Point Malate. And finally, just as other board members have said, just a really deep appreciation to our firefighters and everybody else who is involved in keeping these historic fires under control. And you know, I think virtually everybody in the park was impacted, in the Park District was impacted either directly or indirectly. And so just want to thank everybody for their work, both in terms of keeping those fires in control and also all of the work that went into preventing those fires from being even worse. So big shout out to everyone on that. Thanks for your ongoing work.
Thank you so much, Director Eccles. Director Coffey.
Thank you, Madam President. On August 4, right before our board meeting, I had a Point Malate update from our planning folks. And on August 5, I attended the Finance Committee, of which we heard important feedback this afternoon. On the 6th, I also had a meeting with the 2428 union leadership. on the talk about prescience, public affairs and government affairs put together for the Park District to sponsor a wildfire prevention forum focused on East Contra Costa County. I attended on behalf of the district, Supervisor Burgess, Chief Helmick of the East Contra Costa Fire Protection District, and our own Chief Tiley were the participants on the panel. A lot of effort went into it by Yuli at Public Affairs, and Eric helped with a lot of the prep for it for myself. I think it went off very well, and it took, we recorded it at least on August 13th, and then I was called upon to fill in some gaps in it on the 14th so that it can be distributed on social media at some point. And of course, the 15th was when the lightning hit in various parts of our region and brought all that very much home with us. On the 19th, I had my one-on-one with the general manager and very much appreciated his time and input. I attended as a member of the public legislative committee on August 21st. On the weekend preceding Monday, the 24th, I spent quite a bit of time with Carol Victor and our planning staff, somewhat repositioning the Park District's position with the FEMA development in the city of Pittsburgh. Its council was, as we know, set to consider that housing project on Monday night, the 24th. And we, a few days prior to that, the week prior to this meeting, we learned that the developer had sued the Park District essentially to stop development of the Concord Hills Farm. And I wanted to draft a letter, and staff helped. And I on Monday made a few phone calls with, and had a few calls with members of the Pittsburgh City Council. And ultimately that matter did not go to the council that night as the meeting was postponed. On the 29th, just as a matter of what Mila and I do for weekend excitement, on Friday we attended the Black Diamond Trivia Kahoot program. Cahoots? I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it right. It was the first time I tried that. So the Black Diamond Mine naturalists put together a program, a contest called Symbols and Secret Societies. It was sort of Dan Brown, Da Vinci Code meets Black Diamond Mines. And yours truly came in third, which tells me it might have been rigged, but nah, just kidding. It was a lot of fun, and it's just, you know, a really small sample of the type of inventive and creative and, you know, downright fun and educational programs our naturalists are doing all over the district within all of their expertise and geographic specialties. It's just a fantastic program, and this one in particular that the Black Diamond folks put on. Let me see, the 28th, I had the opportunity to discuss with Jim O'Connor the reopening planning that's in the works, and I appreciated Jim's time. And finally, yesterday, up in the hills above Franklin Canyon, I participated in a video shoot with our friend Doug McConnell, who with the John Muir Land Trust folks and the Bay Area Ridge Trail folks and ourselves were creating a video to celebrate the opening eventually, I believe in October, of the Almond Ranch property, and the very eventful and important critical trail connections that will be made with the opening of that property next to Mount Wanda and the John Muir Historic Site. So that should end up as an episode on open roads at some point. So that was a lot of fun. And I enjoyed the opportunity of participating with the John Muir folks and Doug McConnell. And that covers my August. Thank you much.
Thank you very much, Director Coffey. Director Lane.
All right, thank you. It has been a little while since we've seen each other. I do want to congratulate our management and staff for what they've accomplished in these few months, and now after the lightning strikes. I think they've coped with such energy and a lot of grace, and I very much appreciated getting such a good report today on the fires in particular. Found it very distressing to the supervisor sent me some pictures of Round Valley and Morgan Territory, and it's somewhat distressing to see ash on the ground, and you know what that means about the sterilization of soil, and to know so many beautiful manzanita were destroyed. So I'm a little depressed about that. We have had, purple air quality in our area in the Tri-Valley, and I've been trying to get a little walk out in the morning, and probably I shouldn't have, because my voice has turned into something a little different than people recognize. And as it happened this last month with the big women's suffrage centennial, for really a full week of activities going on, I gave a couple talks and one 5-minute history of suffrage, which was a challenge. And so I think my voice came out a little bit differently than I had expected it to. I am not going to wear my sash for about a month, because it's been enough as far as I'm concerned. Okay, so I have, but I did get to some meetings this last month, a liaison with East Bay Mud, one-on-one with the manager, legislative committee. I had a discussion with Brian Holt and Christina Kelchner on some Ward 6 issues. I sat in to listen to the executive committee, and I went to I had a conversation with some Ask Me leadership. I did go to the League of California Cities program that they offered to talk about diversity in the Bay Area. And it was quite an interesting presentation. And I'd say one of the things that I thought I had not realized was the huge rise in incarcerations for Black Americans over the last 15 years. And that was really a very frightening figure, and it represents a lot of different things. So I appreciated Sam and the group putting together that program for the East Bay Division for the League of California Cities. It was very interesting. I did some hikes, and have received several calls with people interested in the prospects of the Trail Task Force. I love the idea of what came out in the RIN with activities from each of our visitor centers. I thought that was very ingenious, and I really appreciate the naturalists roving around and talking to people. I think it's a wonderful way to connect, even though our visitor centers are closed. Then coming up, I am going to have a hike with Seth Adams from Save Mount Diablo over the McGee Preserve. because as always, he is interested in seeing us take a little more land than we have planned right now for Sycamore Valley open space. And I did go on the Save Mount Diablo website and realized they are having a monthly program. And I looked at the one that John Gallagher did on the Mount Diablo beacon, was the history of the beacon. And it was just extraordinary. So I haven't had a chance to tell John how much I appreciated it, but he and another of my friends, Dick Heron, have been very active with that beacon. And they've been very careful in talking to the Pearl Harbor survivors about using the beacon, turning it on every Sunday night, as they now are, to recognize people working to combat the pandemic. So that was my month, and thank you very much. And I appreciate hearing from all of you about your activities.
Thank you very much, Director Lane. And thank you for being such a great spokesperson about women's suffrage, you know, bringing that message to so many, the importance of what so many brave women did back when to make sure that a very large population received the franchise to vote. So thank you, really important stuff. And we don't mind if you wear your sash, by the way. All right, so the first thing I'd like to say is I just want to thank staff. You know, we moved things around a little bit this August with regard to our meeting schedule, and we usually only have one meeting in August, but I don't know about the rest of you, but it was really nice to have the meeting at the beginning of the month. So we had an opportunity to plan. I know some of us, even during COVID, had a chance to sneak out of town, even for a couple days, get out of the smoke or see the waves crash on the beach or something like that. So thank you. I can say I very much appreciated being able to have that block of time so I could actually take a little bit of a breather. So thank you. Since the last meeting in August 4th, I attended the Finance Committee on August 5th, the EOC on August 5th, the Board Executive Committee on August 6th. I also attended the virtual Unionist of the Year event on August 7th. On August 10th, I met with the board of AFSCME 2428. On August 12th, I attended another EOC meeting. On the 19th, I attended the EOC, and we had 2 additional EOC meetings that week because of the fires that were raging. So I also attended a meeting of the EOC on August 20th and August 21st. On August 24th, I had my one-on-one with the GM. Thank you, Mr. GM, for that. On August 25th, I attended a meeting with our clerk, Yolanda Burial Knight, and Deborah Ocker, who the board falls within her, you think she'd have enough to do being the finance director. The board also falls within her responsibilities. And I want to thank them. We're looking at the policies and procedures of the board, which is due for an update fairly soon. And we were discussing how we can run more efficient and organized meetings. And I want to thank them for the support in that goal. And I think we're going to be getting somewhere. You'll see some improvements in board meetings and closed session meetings for that matter. So thank you for that. On the 26th, I attended the EOC. And on August 31st, I attended the ad hoc meeting to discuss which recruiters we will interview for our upcoming transition. And I have to say, I'm so sorry I missed Dave Z's retirement. I hope some of you were able to attend. We do have a lot of really wonderful staffers who have made such a difference to the history of this organization leaving us. So Dave is one of those. So shout out to him. I did want to ask, in fact, no one has to answer this question, but I do know that the board did ask to have a review of our police policies and procedures. And I noticed that that hasn't been agendized yet. So I hope that we can do that soon, since we did ask for that a little while ago. I do understand there's a lot going on. So please, I do take that into consideration, but I hope we can get that scheduled. And in the middle of all of that, I bet you guys don't even know, I attended the Democratic Convention in my own front room, virtually. I represented the 13th Congressional District from the 17th to the 20th. And I know that's not a district item, but I just wanted to let you know. I saw the very same speeches all the rest of you saw. But in any event, it's been a busy time, even with the time we had off. And I'm spending quite a bit of my time. I use that little extra time to spend time over at our sister park district, the Hayward Area Recreation and Park District, where I spend a lot of time in the community garden over there, which is a fabulous place. I'd love to have you all visit sometime. And it is harvest season, so there's tomatoes and zucchini galore. If anybody needs any, please let me know. And last couple of things, I think that this fire season, so unfortunate for the hardship it has created for so many people, all of the extra effort and amazing commitment of our staff who's been involved in fighting these fires and keeping people safe. And in this smoky weather, I think it behooves us to continue to understand that our climate is changing, and that we take a deeper look at that and figure out what we can continue to do to be prepared in the future for these unfortunate occasions with wildfire. And I know we do a huge amount already. Our park district should also be very proud of the fact that we really are, pretty successful as pioneers in fire mitigation, which has, a lot of time, a lot of money invested in that, and a lot of good results. So that's an amazing thing. And then the one last thing I'd like to ask the board, Director Waspy already mentioned this. Our sister park district, Hayward Area Recreation District, Park and Recreation District, has a new general manager. And I would like to ask the board, if it's okay with you, if we can send a letter. I can send a letter on your behalf, including all of you, congratulating the new general manager, Jim Wheeler. Are you guys okay with that? Okay, excellent. I have a feeling we'll be working with him in the future. What do you think, Dennis? Maybe? All right. Okay, with that, if there's no other comments, it is, what time is it? It is 3:20.
Wow.
This is the end and adjournment of our September 1st meeting. We will see you all again, if not sooner, on September 15th, which will be our next board meeting. Thank you all very much. Glad you're all well and safe. And we welcome the clerk home from an amazing historic trip, who she'll let us know more about sometime, I hope. But we're very proud of our clerk, Yolanda Burial Knight, who was in Washington, D.C., marching as part of history to the Lincoln Memorial. Thank you for representing us, Yolanda.
Welcome.
All right. Good night, goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
See you.
Bye.
Ahead of
Bye.
schedule. Congrats.